of their members carry a message of reconciliation and peace. And I quote, "Believers in contributing to public debate and participating in the societies to which they belong feel themselves called to cooperate in promoting the common good, which rests on a platform of values shared by everyone, believers and non-believers alike. The sacredness of life and the dignity of human beings, respect for liberty of conscience and of religion, practice of responsible freedom, acceptance of different opinions, correct use of reason, appreciation for democratic life, and care for natural resources, to mention but a few," end of quote. As Dr. Omar himself categorically states in his paper, and I quote, "The challenge facing all South Africans is to liberate themselves from narrow conceptions through which they define themselves as communities of privilege and exclusion, and to amplify this concept of hospitality and welcoming the stranger into our midst." And thus I wish to conclude my response to the intervention of Dr. Omar by affirming his analysis on this very point and the expectation it places on all men and women of goodwill and faith in our country through the profound wisdom conveyed through this following quotation. "Our deepest fear is not that we are not inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Our playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around us. We are all meant to shine as children do. It is not just in some of us, but in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same as we are liberated from our own fear. Our presence automatically liberates others."
Thank you, Father Smuts. You have done complete justice to your 10 minutes. Yes, thanks for the response. Now we open it up to the floor. Yes. The mic, please. The mic.
I actually asked first.
Did you ask first? Okay.
Thank you for this particular forum, and it shows a great degree of maturity. And first and foremost, I would like to say that I'm not a theorist as far as interfaith dialogue is concerned. Thus, last night I was at a point where we interacted with Christians. But as far as the paper is concerned, it is a good paper, and we touched on salient issues. But when you look at issues of this nature, we should focus on being united in diversity. And just one concern with regard to a reference, Ibn Hazm, rhetorically, was he wrong? So the idea is when you enter into dialogue, you enter into a dialogue understanding your differences. And I think it is this challenge that we have to actually face. Maybe your response.
Yeah, I gave the example of Ibn Hazm because he represents a very powerful genre of literature of what is called al-milal wa nihal. But I myself have done research on it. And he lived in the 11th century. If we looked at the centuries before that, maybe 10th, 9th century, we find that there was, in fact, differences of opinion among Muslim scholars. They both understood the concept of tahrif, distortion or corruption, but there was a concept called tahrif al-nas and tahrif al-ma'ani. Some scholars, early on, and you can check the Mufassirin, like for example, the great Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, believed that he understood the Quranic critique of the Judeo-Christian scriptures as not the corruption of the text, but the corruption or the distortion in the interpretation. And so sometimes when we look at, in the 21st century, we are not, and we don't know the classical tradition, we tend to think that there is only one particular position. Ibn Hazm, of course, is on the extreme end. He was very polemical, not only with regard to people of other faiths, but even within, Islam. He was part of the Zahiri school, very literal kind of interpretation of texts. Of course, a great scholar. I'm not saying that we should throw everything aboard. I mean, his great insights. But I do think that this is an area in which there requires greater empathy and understanding. Sometimes also, we as Muslims, we use the concept of wahy, divine revelation, and we impose that on the Bible. And maybe they have a different concept of revelation. They might have concept of ilham, inspiration. So are they a singular one understanding of revelation? Do Christians, when they look at the Quran, use their tools and their texts in critiquing? So we should try to, move beyond that. And of course, this is much higher levels of dialogue, but I think it's an absolutely necessary step. That doesn't mean that we're going to ignore, difficult problems, but I do think that it will help us in being more empathetic, in listening to the other. And I think we already had the idea that we should be teaching each other's religions, from within. So if there is a Muslim seminary, it shouldn't be a Muslim that's teaching Christianity, but why don't we get a Christian, and listen to how he or she is authentically interpreting the tradition. I hope that helps a little.
Thank you. Your question?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Omar, for your informative presentation. I was even impressed by the conclusion that you brought up on the quotation of Grantha Mashele. Now, my question is based on the fact that we need to express agape love and to shift from xenophobia to Philoxenia. But then taking into consideration the outstretched resources that we already have in the country, how do you strike a balance, especially if one looks at the political climate in most of African countries, maybe taking into example the Zimbabwe political climate and even Darfur and so forth. So it looks like they may not find the solution quickly, and that also implies that you'll always have an influx of foreigners in our country. So if we show them all the love, comfort, and so forth, are we not going to create a problem? Don't get me wrong that I'm saying we should treat them, but then what do you think could be a solution, maybe to that, or striking a balance between love and outstretched resources? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You see how complex the situation is, and there are no easy and simplistic solutions. I do think, though, that, and as religious people, sometimes also we need to acknowledge that we don't have all the solutions. We are just making a modest contribution, and we can call on others, people of faith and of no faith, to come along and help us. And here we need some, economists. We can point in the direction that, look, there's huge inequalities of wealth, which is in fact increasing, needs to be urgently looked at. And we must challenge people with expertise to come up with economic policies that would be able to eradicate the scourge of poverty. One of the other things is as well, it requires us to prompt, also to think beyond the box. I've for example, mentioned one of the things that we have not looked at is the question of nationalism. Nationalism is a product of modernity. Often in the debates, some of us are being told, especially Muslims, if you just modernize, you're so backward. You'll solve all of your problems. I think many of our problems is a result of our embracing of modernity. And one of them is the question of nationalism. And in Europe now, they are moving beyond it. They are making a European Union. Why should we be wedded to, the borders? Who made these borders? In Africa,